Well, what's up, everybody? We are back with another Rings of Power review / breakdown, I guess.
Yep.
I guess that's what we're doing.
Yep.
Man.
Got a lot of notes this time.
Yeah.
This was simultaneously the worst episode so far, and I think the best episode so far, if that makes sense.
It doesn't. It's just terrible.
Yeah, it's a terrible episode, but I think it has like at least a character who's interesting now. You know what I mean?
No.
Well, I find Adar interesting, but I enjoyed the Elrond and Durin stuff. But even then, even stuff within that was
get
bad.
That.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get.
And there were no Harfoots, so.
Dude.
I mean, you gotta take that up.
Yeah. You absolutely have to be like.
This episode's a 10 out of 10 with that.
Yeah. No Harfoots.
9 out of 10 episode, no Harfoots.
Oh man, and it was really funny because I didn't even think about it until after the episode was over, and I was like, "Oh man, the Harfoots weren't in that," and you're like, "Well, that's a win, I guess."
Yeah. But we do get Trump.
Dude, there's so many. They had to spend so much time on other completely useless plot lines.
Bro, like why? Who gives a crap about Isildur's sister and her love interest, like being Farazan's son?
Yeah,
that's what that guy is.
Yeah. It's like, just. And she keeps showing up, and it's like, okay, she's standing there watching the stuff going on, and then there's the other part where she's like cleaning a pillar. Like we'll get to it, but it was so weird. It's like, what?
I think she was supposed to be scrubbing the floors or something like that, and it's supposed to improve dexterity or something, is what she said.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't understand what the showrunners and what the creatives were thinking with all these different subplots going on that don't matter.
Yeah, they really nothing.
And it takes away. This is what I mean. We got so many comments when, on TikTok regarding Arondir, right?
Yes.
And we were talking about how, our episode last week that, his goofy elf and captain getting killed doesn't resonate. And so many people were saying, well, it wasn't supposed to resonate for the audience. We're supposed to resonate through Arondir and him losing his friends. I'm like, yeah, but guys, that doesn't work because there's no proper, we don't spend any time with them.
Yeah, exactly. Because Arondir is who we are following.
Yes.
And Arondir in the show hasn't spent a ton of time with them. Like, we understand that he clearly knows them. We talked about that before where they've been there for roughly 70, 79 years.
79 years, something like that.
So they've been there that long, right? So they've spent time together. They probably knew each other before that because elves are really old, even though you wouldn't know it from the show that much because all we get is like the occasional... Oh, honestly, I think the only... And we'll talk about this when we get to the Elrond stuff. But the timeline in this is complete... It's all over the place. I don't know how long one section is from another, or if a section is like of characters is now further along than someone else, because there's these vague references to the passage of time, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And it's so frustrating because yes, as the audience, we are following Arondir. The only way we, as the audience, are going to be able to connect with the characters that Arondir is losing is if we spend enough time with them. Which we didn't. One of them died, and then it's like, bum, bum, and the music's like, oh no, and then the guy's dead, and I'm like, dude, he cracked a couple jokes in episode 1 and died in episode 3. Like, that's all we got.
Dude, not only that, but I was kind of hoping Adar would kill Arondir because he groomed Bronwyn. Like, knew him from a baby and now it's a love interest. You write the art, that's all I'm saying.
Dude, he's actually, and I the whole thing with Adar, I'm like worried what they're really going to be doing with him is just like making him some sort of like sympathetic character by the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Who was that? Like, so because he's been there for 79 years, Bronwyn, he would have had to know Bronwyn when she was a baby.
She's what, 30 maybe?
And like was just, I guess, waiting for her to come. Dude, it's
that same weirdness that was going on with Twilight, where they thought it was a good idea for the wolf boy to imprint on the baby. Yeah. I got him. I'm telling
Don't say imprint on a baby.
Dude. That's exactly what happens. It was weird then, and it's still weird.
He imprinted on Braun when she was a baby. He's secretly working for Sauron.
Yeah, dude.
He's worse than Sauron. At least Sauron would just kill him.
It's very strange.
Yeah,
it's very strange.
It is. Yeah, I think they. So it's going back to. Yeah, we'll get into it as far as Adar's concerned later.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and kind of jump into this, and we can go through everything. I want to know what you thought about this opening scene with Muriel.
Oh yeah,
and the all the women standing around with the babies, and I was like, oh okay. And honestly, at first I went, oh, are they like giving us some background about something that the Numenorians do? I was like, oh, is this like going to bring some character context to this group of people? And that's not what this is.
No.
At all.
So in the first scene I wrote, this is the first thing I wrote, which was laughing at the mother of the baby in the opening scene running away without grabbing her child from Tarmiriel.
Because I guess it's this lady. She's the only one standing there without a baby.
Yeah. And then with
she must grab it from her.
Like, she just leaves.
Oh, no, she doesn't even grab. Oh, wait, no, there it is.
Wait.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's where she takes the baby. Okay.
And then all the destruction comes and everybody's running and she just runs with them without grabbing her baby.
Yeah.
It's just like minor details like that. I know I just found that funny.
I love it. It's like it starts like rumbling or whatever, and she's like, sometimes the island just needs a stretch.
Yeah, so
big deal.
Oh, dude, I wrote that down too. What did I say? I said sometimes our island just needs a stretch. Laughing, but so she's having this vision, right? And I don't know if you remember, but in Lord of the Rings, this is the vision that Eowyn has. In the actual movies, when she talks to Aragorn, and then also in the books, Faramir has it as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily dislike that they give her that, even though I think one of the problems with the show is there's too many prophecies, too many mystery boxes, too many things like that. And I think the problem with this is that the main thing that I wrote in actual, more serious criticism is I think creating a vision of Numenor's destruction for Tarmiriel, for that to be her motivating factor, right? For her, her purpose.
Yeah.
And is kind of lazy and low tier writing. Instead, they need to show us she has other reasons to save Numenor and the faithful outside of its destruction. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Give her some better characterization. Again, I'm not saying that can't be a part of it.
Right. It's such a broad.
Just that.
Yeah. And again, it's because we haven't spent that much time with any of these people, so we don't understand their motivations. You're basically getting back to the point we always talk about that apparently means hand-holding, where it's like, it would be great if we had some context to see why Muriel actually cares about Numenor besides the fact that it's just Numenor. Because as of right now, that's pretty much it. I mean, you could probably draw some sort of, out of this vision or whatever, you could draw something where it's like, oh, well, she must care about like the children or whatever.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been enough interaction with the people of Numenor because we're constantly jumping around to different sections of the show without that time spent seeing those things. Like, they're not, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think the show is using its time wisely in the scenes that they're writing for this. And this happens a lot in this episode.
Yep.
I also
in the other episodes too. I think you're right on point. Like this was one of my worries, and this was one of my worries with the show, and this is a great contrast to House of the Dragon.
Right.
'Cause House of the Dragon is doing the same thing, but doing it much more effectively than the Rings of Power is.
Whenever
right?
you HBO Max shill.
Yeah. That's right. David Zaslav is paying us $1 million an episode for each review. That's why I have this wonderful setup behind me.
Yeah.
But really high quality stuff. It's not just the compression in time with the show. It's also the compression of distance. We talked about that in the last episode. How we're not really going on this journey with the characters
Uh-huh.
while they're traveling from, this region to that region. And so we're not really being able to be immersed into the world. It's just going from, hey, we were in Khazad-dûm, now we're back in Aragion.
Yeah.
And
that was
we're showing Golden Girls.
Yeah. That was something that Game of Thrones OG did really well, where people would try, and they lost this along the way, which we'll get to, because there's a similar complaint coming up about that. But as they were traveling, they would stop in places, and characters would have conversations with each other, and they would be dealing with the politics of the realm, or like what, a bunch of different things. And it wasn't like Cersei is mad at Ned because Ned did this. Da da da. That's not the way that it should be written, which is the way this show has a tendency to write things out. Like, they keep telling you characteristics of characters instead of just showing you those things.
And let's exactly. And let's remind people. All right, so one of the biggest problems Disney has, and just watching that video you sent me this past week with Mahler and Adam and Stitch, reminded me when they talked about how the director and the writers for Black Widow, I think, the original script got scrapped, and then, they wrote another script, and then like a day or two before production started, they were like, nope, start over again. And then same thing with Multiverse of Madness. The Sam Raimi only had, a week or two to write it, and it actually made me respect those films.
Multiverse got rewritten like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, it made me respect those films more because that's extremely difficult to do, and the fact that he made something somewhat coherent, I guess, is respectable. It's kind of like the same thing, the respect I have for Peter Jackson regarding The Hobbit. Similar situation happened with him with Warner Brothers. So anyway, I say that to say, with this show, I wanted to remind people, so they worked on a script, and then once Christopher Tolkien died in January of 2020, they, changed course, and that's when we got news of Shippey getting fired, and then, or he left, whatever it was, and then what else? He got let go, and then a bunch of some actors left, a bunch of the writers left, and so they kind of within that had to start a whole new script. But that's on them. They had plenty of time to develop this. And so if you're going to change things when Christopher Tolkien dies, that's giving me an indication of now the route that you're going. And I think these writers are trying to, there's either too many writers, too many cooks in the kitchen, or all these writers can't handle all this well. They weren't focused enough. The main thing that this is lacking is focus.
Didn't Morfydd Clark also say that she didn't know who she was playing till she showed up on set?
Yeah, probably. I think that's
I heard that. Yeah,
I think that's probably the case for a lot of the actors and actresses, so that they, kind of keep everything on the down low.
That's such crap.
No
that's what
that's
what NDAs are for.
Yeah,
that's what NDAs are for. Like, if they were gonna,
I'll say this. Listen. When we've criticized this show, we haven't criticized the actors. But I will criticize this about Morfydd Clark.
We've definitely talked about things they've said outside of the show.
Yes. Yeah, that's different. But as far as criticizing their performances within the show,
listen, it's fine to do that, and here's why. Because I understand. Like I think we talked about this in one of the previous reviews. But you're right. There is only a certain amount of agency that actors have when they're doing this kind of stuff, and at the same time, you're an actor. They're telling you, hey, this is how. Like Galadriel, for instance, they want Galadriel to act. It doesn't mean that you have to be stone-faced, sour. That there's emotion and things that actors do with their faces that are supposed to portray things. I know we keep talking about House of the Dragon, but one of the things that I remember is like there's this scene with Corlys in the first episode where he just gives this look, I think, to Viserys. No dialogue, no nothing. Viserys says something. It shoots over, the camera goes over to Corlys, and he just has this look. And it might just be when Daemon comes in to the room. And you just you immediately know, oh, there's tension between the two of them. Because we get a little bit of Daemon. We kind of understand who he is. He comes over, and Corlys just gives him this look like, ugh. And it's a look that everyone has given someone in their life. You immediately know what's going on, right? It's just that's the difference.
One of the things, right, and I completely agree with that. I think What I will criticize Morphin on is for not reading the books and understanding Galadriel. She admitted that she didn't read the books.
Yeah.
That's worthy criticism. I just think that most of the actors in this show are doing what they can with a terrible script. An actor will, generally speaking, for the most part, will only be as good as the writing.
Yeah. Most of the problems I have with the acting is usually the background actors, because I've talked about that a bunch, where it's like they're wandering around and it doesn't seem like they're getting great direction all the time as to what they're supposed to be doing. They're like kind of standing there. It's almost.
I noticed it last night.
Yeah,
there was when not Trump was speaking. There's a guy that's like looking at him, like the back of his head almost. And it's like, they told him like be interested in what they're saying, and he's just it's just so obvious. But so we get this opening scene of Numenor's destruction.
I wanted to go back to the destruction subplot or whatever. We'll leave it right there for a second. That's kind of funny.
I love how she's holding someone else's baby, and she's just waiting for the
lady leaves
big old wave to come in through the window.
So a couple things. We're gonna be doing this comparison.
She's in shock, David. Come on.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing this comparison to Game of Thrones a lot. We live in the worst timeline that Game of Thrones, and I'm not the first person who said this, but we live in the worst timeline where like Game of Thrones is making Lord of the Rings look bad.
You know what George R. Martin did, or one of the writers for the show took too much to heart when George R. Martin said, "What was Aragorn's tax policy?"
Yeah. But
that's what they're trying to do with this show.
They are, and we actually didn't talk about this in the previous episode, but the show is like directly ripping scenes from Game of Thrones and putting in this. This is one of those things done worse than Game of Thrones did it. The original one. I'll try to preface when I mean House of the Dragon, because Daenerys has a vision in King's Landing of, at the time, what she thought and what the audience thought might be snow falling, right? So the snow's falling, she's in there, you're not getting a lot of context to what's happening. You understand that it seems to either be, like, maybe there's some destruction, maybe there isn't, but she's in the empty throne room, and there's snow falling. And it's correct foreshadowing, by the way. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand what foreshadowing is. So something like this, done properly, now it still would have been derivative of Game of Thrones as far as I'm concerned, and yes, it did it first, and it's not a bad idea, but if it was just the petals falling, because for two reasons. You have to come at this show, I think, when you're trying to do some criticism, remembering that normal people are trying to watch this, right? It's not just lore experts, it's not just those of us who are looking for things with a critical eye. There's also normal people who are watching this. And if you're not giving them the correct kind of mysteries, the correct kind of foreshadowing, like the leaves are falling, Muriel's worried about that, but we don't get a giant wave coming over the city to destroy the entire thing. At the very beginning. You could have built this up to something.
That would have been perfect, and I'm glad you pointed that out. I didn't even think of that. Just having Nimlos leaves.
Yeah.
Fall.
It's just a sign of what's coming.
That would be correct. Yep, that would be correct foreshadowing, better than just seeing the entire destruction of Numenor.
And the lore
and then you get that when that destruction happens, once they get to that point, it takes the general audience by surprise, right?
Yeah. And the lore people could have been going crazy with it, being like, what do the leaves falling off of the tree actually mean in Lord of the Rings? Like, there would have been 100,000 people talking about this stuff. And you have this, and we have to talk about the difference, I guess, between like a mystery box and then like the foreshadowing and the build up to something that we haven't seen yet. The mystery box is just like dumb, oh hey, like
Sword of Sauron.
Yeah, like there's literally a mystery box. It's like if in Jackson's original trilogy they had put Aragorn's sword inside of a box and constantly shot back to it as like just like a reference to that, and everyone's like, oh, what's in that? That's such a curious thing. Rather than just having it there broken, and the understanding that it's probably going to get reforged. This is going to be important at some point. I think they talk. I think it's. I'm going to get the name wrong, so I'm not going to say it. But the concept is essentially like if you have a gun in the first act, it's going to show up later on. Now it's a little bit different in Lord of the Rings because the sword doesn't get reforged till the third film, right? So it's It's slightly different, but it's the general
we talked
idea.
About it.
Kochevsky's gun or something like that, I think.
Yeah,
I
think we talked about it in our Terminalist review, how one of the great things with it was proper payoff. Not so we mentioned how Game of Thrones ruined so many other shows because everybody focused on trying to subvert the audience expectations without also doing proper payoff. And so one of the great things with Terminalist is if you see an axe, that he's using or has in a previous episode, and then you want to get him you want to finally see him use it at some point, and that's one of the things they do well. You know what I mean? It's not just hey, here's this axe, and then nope, he uses freaking a firework to kill someone.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's gun. Excuse me, everyone. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and move past this. So we have the Farazan and Elrond's fake sister,
Aaron or something like that.
Yep.
And then I think Farazan's son comes into play, and his name is Heimlin or something.
No,
Hyman.
His name. So I thought I misunderstood what he said at first. I thought he was like, "Hi, I'm Kevin." It starts with a K. We'll get to it in a second, but
that'd been perfect for this show if he just said, "Hi, I'm Kevin."
Just Kevin. So there's this incredible, this great moment here that I wanted to play real quick. That I was like, I can't believe that they put something like this in the show. So they're talking, they're doing their whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then we get this scene.
I work with a lot of fine men who have families to feed. I don't know about y'all, but we worked long and hard to get our pay up to a level where we could make a decent living. And now these people from the future are showing up and offering to do the same work for next to nothing. They took our jobs. Yeah, they down. Took our jobs. They did.
That's so spot on, man. That's great. That guy's name is Cayman or something like that.
Because
whatever.
It played. I went, wait, his name's Kevin, and I was like, I know that's not right. I just
they took our jobs,
dude. He started talking about the elk workers taking your trades. It's
You're
literally
talking about
what
not
he says.
Trump right there.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So he he said that, and I just literally went, oh my gosh, they're doing they took our jobs.
Oh man, dude. So one of my biggest problems with this entire show so far is we've gotten allegory after allegory, right? Like, you get Arondir and they put him in chains and he's being, the kind of the optics of it, right?
Yeah.
And with knowing the bad reboot, I think they're being purposeful in it with their intentions. But you have Arondir, who's the first black elf in Tolkien's world, right? Mm-hmm. And he gets put in chains by orcs who are all white.
Yeah. Wearing white cloaked garbs. It's
why do you...
If it's okay, so let's pretend. Well, let's just assume that it's not the case.
Why does it have to put someone else in that scene?
If even if it's not the case, right? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, right, to take the other side. Let's say it's not the case. People don't believe that that's the intention behind the show, what the showrunners were trying to do. It's still really bad optics because that's what it looks like.
Yep.
Like if you're saying no, what they're doing, it has nothing to do with the real world. It's like, okay, even with the scene in, I think it's episode 1 where Arondir goes into the bar and the guy's like, "Oh, come off it, knife ears," and he goes crazy. In that scene, you can't put yourself in a position where someone looks at that and goes like, is this supposed to be real world allegory for what they believe is going on in the world right now?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta work that, and it's if it's not the case, it's it really looks like it.
Yeah, and it comes off as putting this black character right into this trope, the stereotypical trope, and in a place where it doesn't fit. It's not like you're doing some fictional story of 1860, right?
Yep.
And so Tolkien hated allegory, and in this episode we have the allegory of immigration.
Yeah. because Galadriel is there. It's not even like there's a whole, and it doesn't make a lot of sense anyway.
Why did the elves come?
Yeah.
Especially, don't they know that if Galadriel knows that Numenor doesn't like them at this point, right? That's what we're told in the story.
Right.
Wouldn't these other elves know too?
Yeah. Then why would they show up? The elves are fine. They are not.
Elves are stupid in this show, apparently.
They are. Yeah. Well, the elves are very dumb. It is true.
Not Galadriel though.
But the elves are also fine. It's not as if their way of life currently is in some sort of peril.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're doing perfectly fine for themselves. They don't need Numenor. So this doesn't, even in context of the world, this doesn't make any sense. Now, I can understand you say, well, he's just trying to drum up, make people scared or whatever. It's like, but it doesn't, and of course, it kind of gets worked out.
Inflation's really hitting Linden hard right now, dude.
Because
their stocks are all down. That's why they had to go to Numenor.
Yeah. Farazan comes in just a second, and he's like, hey, why is this even the case? Like, what are you talking about? And he quells this or whatever. But you would think a lot of these people standing in the crowd would be like, dude, it's just one elf.
I was really hoping that Numenor was going to be drilling for oil, and you're going to see the elves there helping because they needed work. Just to really hit the nail on the head. Bro. But yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, that's basically what happens. We're gonna skip ahead just a little bit
because he's saying right here they're coming. They're taking our jobs, and so I'm assuming I know he was referring to Galadriel, but wasn't he also saying elves are there on Numenor? More elves?
Oh, I don't know. Well, we don't even have context for that if that's the case. If there are elves,
if I'm confused on that, hey, someone pointed out to me. I could be wrong, but the context I got from it, I only saw it one time. I typically, I try and watch at least 2 times before we come on and give the review. And so I think, I thought he was saying that there are more elves there now out of nowhere. I could be wrong. Maybe he's just referring to Galadriel.
Yeah,
but I know that
I think he's just trying to drum up trouble. Okay. But if there are other elves on Numenor, I haven't seen them.
Yeah, I think now that I remember in this next scene, Farazan says, essentially we're going to get in this big uproar over one elf.
Yeah.
So
gaggling and mewling.
But that doesn't make sense. Like, why would that guy then?
He says,
contextually wise, it doesn't make sense why he would get upset with just saying they're coming for our jobs with just one elf.
Right. Oh, well, that's because it's okay. So again, they're putting their allegory and the things that they're trying to push over the plot making sense.
Yeah.
That's, he says, but one elf, a castaway, could threaten us. So it's,
I really, my other criticism, since we're into this shot with Farazan now, is I think the actor's good. And I think his dialogue is probably some of the best in the show, which is saying something. But I don't enjoy their characterization of Farazan, because Farazan was one of the greatest, you can make the argument, the greatest commander, or one of the greatest commanders of Numenor, one of the greatest war heroes. I mean, he defeated Sauron in battle twice.
Yeah.
The first time, completely obliterated, wiped out his entire army. The second time, when Sauron had to rebuild his forces with the orcs from the east, all Sauron's army saw Farazan and his fleet coming for him, and they fled. And that's why Sauron had to surrender. So again, I just don't enjoy this characterization of him being this conniving and scheming politician.
This is really
funny. It comes off more Game of Thrones than it does Tolkienian.
Of course, because that's what they were. I mean, listen, that's what they're going for. But they don't know how to do it, and it's why I'm saying again, they're just taking things like plot points from Game of Thrones and slapping them into this with its Lord of the Rings sheen on top of it. Mm-hmm. But I do think this is hilarious when he brings out this wine for everyone.
He's like drinks for everyone out of nowhere.
Yeah, they're just ready to go. It's super funny.
It's just completely random.
They give a couple cups to a few people right here.
Yeah.
There's some, right in here too, and then the rest of the crowd's it doesn't have anything. This guy's like, oh no, those are scrolls.
His speech is fine. And then he says that, and it's like, what?
It feels off to me, but that's tough. Can we mention too? Hang on, before we go.
Trump right here.
Hang on, can I mention something about him real quick?
Yeah.
How is he?
You're about to mention the same thing.
Probably. How is he alive?
Or not seriously just maimed in his face?
Yeah, dude, he got his face brutally smashed into a wall multiple times
by not Sauron. Come on.
By Sauron, not Sauron.
Or discount Aragorn.
Brother. And then of course, have we got? Oh no, it's coming up. This scene with I'm just gonna call him Kevin from now on. Here comes Kevin.
That'd be great. Hitting on Air. That's what I'm gonna start calling her Air because I don't really want to pronounce her name. I think it's supposed to be Aaron or something.
Isildur's fake sister.
Yeah.
And again, this is a perfect example of them having to tell us about Farazan's character as if we didn't just see it for ourselves. And that we can't learn over time his intentions, right? Yeah. So again, forgetting lore, forgetting all of the things that the baggage that people tend to bring into these things when they're like, whether it's for good or bad, where they're trying to build up a character. It's like, well, actually in the books or actually in the lore, it's like, okay, but that's not what the show is telling us, right?
Right.
Instead of them taking the time to build Farazan out, we get Kevin coming in and talking about how the people love him, but I find it infuriating or whatever. Let's see if there was something else in here. A crowd he can't turn. There's no crowd he can't turn, a favor he isn't owed. And she says it's impressive. I was going to say infuriating, but it's like, dude, we don't need you to...
We're seeing that.
Yeah. He literally could have said, he could have come up and they could have gone in a way that was more like, it's impressive or whatever, and he goes more like infuriating, because then that gives you an understanding of what he thinks of his father without it having to be, a crowd he can't turn. You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it's exactly what we're talking about with House of the Dragon, where they can just show shots of a character like Viserys when he went in the last episode, when Daemon comes back and he just won the battle and he's wearing the crown, and you get these shots of just Otto and Viserys, and you can kind of just see, okay, what is Daemon going to do? Is he's trying to play us right now or something of the sort?
Yep. So yeah, they're going their whole thing. She's doing this too. She's like, my troubles have been too hard won. We haven't gotten to see any of this. We're literally just being told these things.
But David, the writers are not hand-holding us through this. They respect the audience. That's what we've gotten told many times on TikTok.
Yeah. Kemen, Kemen.
Kemen.
And your name is?
Kevin. I prefer Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin is definitely better. And then so the scene's over, and I'm like, oh, great. This plot will be them being interested in each other and him turning out to be a massive douche.
Yep.
That is what this is.
Generic
Yay.
Entropy. And now we get this scene back, of the, sigil of, or the map of Mordor, that apparently Galadriel doesn't understand maps until she goes to the lore house, even though she's thousands of years old. And none of the leaders of the elves thought to use Numenor, scholars and stuff this entire time with the sigil that they thought was from Sauron, or that was from Sauron.
Yeah. I have to, at this point, we're just going to, it seems that all of the leaks, rumors, and everything are clearly pointing to Halbrand being Sauron. Like, that's what we're going with.
Yeah.
I have to assume that's true, because if it's not, Galadriel really is very dumb.
Yeah.
She has known this dude for all of I'll be generous and be like a week, right?
So again, you're saying that you don't think Halbrand is Sauron?
No, I'm saying he probably is, because if he's not, right?
Yeah.
If for some reason that turns out not to be the case, because I can use, essentially what I'm trying to get at is, I can use an excuse, for the show that part of the reason Galadriel is so gung ho for a dude she met in the middle of the ocean a week ago is because he's manipulating her. He has the ability to, he's powerful. He has the ability to do stuff like that. If that's not true, it legitimately makes her character worse. Now, you've mentioned...
I think the opposite. If it is true, it makes her character worse.
So I guess it's just bad either way. Because at least according to the show, right? Because we haven't been given any of the indication that she is this powerful sorceress that would be able to see through the lies of Halbrand, right? We don't have any of that for the show.
Right.
So from the perspective of the show, she's just a strong warrior. That's all we've been given.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, and he's not, she's just like, oh, I just trust this random stranger that I met on a boat.
Yeah.
Because it's so funny to see how she's like sticking up for him, and it's like, dude, you've known him for a week. Yeah. You don't know anything about this guy.
Well, she's lost her people too, David, from Sauron, and she knows how it feels, dude.
Right.
She, come on.
And that
you're just not understanding it, bro. You just want to complain about this show.
She's going off on this whim of like, I'm pretty sure he might be this guy who's supposed to be like the king in the South. And you're like, okay.
Southerners.
Aragorn, not Aragorn. Sauron, not Sauron.
I wrote this down for you. I meant to say this with that previous scene, the not Trump scene, where he's riling up everyone. Is the allegory of immigration due to what's going on with Martha's Vineyard? Is that why is Numenor supposed to be Martha's Vineyard?
I would, if that wasn't like super recent news, I'd probably agree with you.
I know. I'm just messing. Oh man, like one immigrant comes and they flip out.
The showrunners come out and like, actually, it was the allegory for the recent stuff going on in Martha's Vineyard. You're just like, dude, you wrote this way before that. Anyway.
But no, I agree with you. I think show wise that wouldn't, if it turns out to not be Sauron, then that probably would make it worse.
Yeah.
For the show with what they're displaying.
And so I want to talk about this real quick again. You've mentioned this before. Elendil is not a petty lord, right?
No,
Lord-wise.
Right.
Go ahead. Because I saw this when I was watching the episode, and I was like, it just bugged me because this is lore inaccurate, right?
Yes. Now I don't know if he's just, the characterization they're having is he's just being self-deprecating to the Queen Regent, like, hey, I'm just a lord.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
I can give them that,
He's also Aragorn, not Aragorn.
Yeah, but at the same time, he comes from, if my memory serves me correctly, he comes from the line of kings. He's a descendant of, I guess technically all of them would, but direct descendant of Elros. And so, and Elros was Elrond's half-brother. And for those who don't know, Elros chose to go the mortal route because they're both half elven.
Yeah.
Elrond and Elros, and Elros chose to go the route of man, and Elrond chose to stay, go the route of the elf, as far as immortality and stuff like that. And so that's where they descend from, and that's where his line descends from, and he's a direct descendant of the king's line.
I want to mention this. I actually really appreciate his like subtle like facial expression here, right? Like he's talking about him being a petty lord, and he's kind of like trying to crack wise, and she gives him this like stare or whatever, and then he's like, oh, she didn't find that funny. It's just like it's a really subtle thing right here. I appreciate that. Good on him. Yeah. Anyway, back to them. They might unite behind his banner. So yeah. She is trying to convince the Queen Regent that a guy who showed up on a raft randomly makes it into Numenor, that her army should back this guy with no reasoning other than it just should happen, right? And I guess you could say like, oh, you have this stuff going on with the map. She now understands that, but I'm telling you, she still wouldn't believe her.
Yeah, but bro, you got to understand, Galadriel is an allegory for Karen, for all the Karens out there. She has to speak to the manager again, right? She's not getting her way.
She does do that. She does do that again.
So she has to completely, degrade the queen and do everything you're not supposed to. And then get thrown in jail, right? At least they threw her in jail. Give them that. At least they had the wherewithal to do that.
I wrote that down. I wrote down the Queen Regent did the right thing, throwing her in prison.
And you gotta think she's supposed to be thousands of years old in the show, right?
Right.
What they're portraying,
we think.
Yes, elves mature around 100 years, right? 50 to 100 years. So let's just say 50 to 150 is when they mature. right? So you got to think with all the time she spent with these elves who are, very wise, like the Numenorians learned from the Nordor, right? And so she knows how to speak at this point. This is just this entire characterization of Galadriel just seems off. Even what they want to do, you would think she would know how to be tactful and play the game. And she has her pride, right? If that's how they want to display her, but she's crafty in using it.
Yeah. I find her very frustrating.
Yeah.
Right. So Queen Regent does the right thing and she's like, no, we're not doing that. What does she say right here? She's like, we've heard, in this court, we hear many proposals. I dare say yours is the most surprising and ambitious I've heard this week. Nevertheless, Numenor has chosen another path, which I don't think was the right way to do that. You need to use... Okay, so this is the difference in dialogue between them telling us about someone's characteristics rather than showing, in a moment where a character needs to put someone in their place.
Mm-hmm.
Where if this is the way that Galadriel is being represented, where she shows up with this random stranger that none of these Numenorians know, the elves are on the outs with the Numenorians. She comes into the current queen, the person who's running the show right now, makes this wild
request.
Thank you. And then this is her response, and I'm like, no. Her response really should have been to put her in her place again and been like, we are on the out, whatever their reasoning is for them being on the outs with the elves, like go through all of that. Be like, you're trying to get me to send an army to the south based on a guy that you met on a boat that you both washed up in Numenor. Now, I know they got picked up on the boat, but essentially that's
she also had that vision of Numenor's destruction, which began with Galadriel showing up.
Yeah. Which would be something that we would know that Galadriel wouldn't, and I don't think she would just be like, well, I also had this vision, even though she shows it to her later, I guess, when she starts trusting her again. I was just, man. Anyway, it just doesn't make sense for the scene.
Yeah.
Numenor's chosen another path, sorry, because that doesn't give you the understanding that's like, what you're asking us to do is stupid and crazy. What? We don't have proof of this. How do we know? How do the Numenorians know? How am I supposed to back them by like, well, this elf who randomly washed up went to our archives. She's found this random mark. It kind of looks like this area in the Southlands. Who wants to go to war for this?
But David, you can't put two and two together yourself, you idiot. Jeez, you just need your handheld. And I'm tired of it.
It's so funny because it's not about, again, we're going back to this thing. It's like it's not about that. It's about context, giving context to the scene. It makes sense that the queen would react a certain way, and she doesn't do that. And it would be good if she did that.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move on. Oh, yeah, now we get that famous moment from the trailer that everybody was making fun of.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you see how she gets, she's getting really angry. Her moment of, let me speak to the manager.
Yep. I am the daughter of Finn Narfin of the 5th class of the Rising Sun of the Small Wave. It's like all these Game of Thrones references.
Yeah, again, she's being massively disrespectful. She's owed nothing because what has she done for any... And this is the thing. It's like she hasn't done anything for these people. She's running around demanding all of this stuff.
David, this is a strong, independent woman.
Man.
No, actually, and a more serious note regarding Galadriel, if she is supposed to be some kind of, model in this show for young girls to look up to, what she is communicating is that it's okay to be angry, unkind, unsympathetic, just full with revenge and, just be completely against anyone who says no to them for whatever reason, self-righteous, selfish, and self-absorbed, and ready to murder people just who disagree with you on something, and also unaware of how to speak tactfully and read a map.
Yes, and it's a situation too where and we've mentioned this before. Even if she's going to have all these characteristics and be very broken as a character, there has to be something there that people look at as why they like her.
Mm-hmm.
and it's just going to get us
that the show is showing, not that you're coming from within the books,
right?
But that the show is actually
specifically showing. And let's make another Game of Thrones House of the Dragon reference. Daemon Targaryen, very broken character. People love him because there are bits of him, his love for his family, even if that's a little suspect. There's all of these things that show how broken he is as a character, but then also his personality beyond his bad traits.
Well, he's not. Well, this is the thing. Well, even beyond that, he's not the main protagonist. She's the main protagonist.
Yeah.
We're supposed to find something we like about her. Someone brought up the thing. Well, Game of Thrones didn't do that. Look at Jaime Lannister and Cersei. I'm like, they were the antagonists.
Well, not just that. Cersei had qualities that people liked.
Yeah.
But
the point is that the main protagonist is supposed to be the one.
Oh, yeah.
Literally the one that you like.
Yeah. You had that, and it's okay. So I'm trying to think of a female character who was a protagonist.
Vi?
No, I was thinking more Game of Thrones, just because it's fantasy. Like you got the sword and sorcery thing going on. Daenerys doesn't really work long term. Arya, that's the problem with Game of Thrones, like OG Game of Thrones, and we haven't gotten far enough into House of the Dragon for Rhaenyra to be able to speak like fully on Rhaenyra. I guess you could use her as an example because, like we were talking about in the last episode, she is portrayed somewhat in the first 3 episodes as a sort of like she's got that very maiden-esque princess thing going on. She's very innocent. And then she has this you could call it like her awakening in the 4th episode where she's starting to go down this darker path. So you don't like certain aspects of what she's attempting to do or the things that she's being tempted by, but you also understand kind of who she is as a person and you sympathize with her, and there's aspects of her that you can connect with.
Yeah.
You could even say the same for Corlys's wife, who has a very specific perspective, but she's not just kind of bitter. Yes, she's bitter about something specific, but you are understanding of the actions that she's taking and the way that she feels about things. Even though she's minor in that show.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, all we're getting is she scowls. She doesn't care about her people. She seems to be able to just get everything her way. And we'll get to that.
Yep.
In this, because it happens again in this episode.
Because the plot calls for it.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, there's all of these things.
She needed a man to tell her how to do it, David.
Yeah, which is really funny because that seems very opposite. Not to mention if he turns out to be Sauron, that kind of is even worse.
These writers are so dumb.
I'm telling you, dude, they're gonna go down the he manipulated me plot with that if it's real, and it's just gonna be like, dude.
They're trying to show her as a strong, independent woman, but yeah, she needed a man to tell her how to speak.
So you get this line. Or are you a castaway grasping for a handhold in a tempest? There is a tempest in me. Okay, great, Galadriel. Thanks for that.
That look, too, just makes it even better. Not her fault. That's the line.
It swept me to this island for no reason, and it will not be quelled by you, Regent. And she gets locked up. I think it's very funny because it's like, does she really know she got swept to this island for a reason? Like,
yeah. It's funny, in the last episode, was it the last episode or was it episode 2 when she tells Halbrand when he's locked in jail that it wasn't destiny or fate that brought us together, it was something greater. And I'm like, but
if that's true,
that's what that is.
Yeah,
what's greater? Like, you're trying to make this impactful, and all you say is something greater, which is a play, from Peter Jackson's movies, but I just thought it was funny.
Do the elves in the lore have like a religion? Like, are they? Could
they worship
you describe
the
them
Valar.
as? Okay, so you could describe them as religious.
Yep.
All right.
Dwarves too have their own religion. They specifically worship Ale.
Okay, and we get it. I actually, no matter what
I'm simplifying it.
Yeah.
No matter without going into all the details, that's not what we're here for. We're not a lore channel.
No matter what you think about how they handle it in this, part of me does appreciate that they tried to give some context to the dwarves, kind of like spiritualness in this episode. Again, show's not very good. I think the dwarf stuff is probably the closest thing to passable. Even though there's definitely some issues with it. So she's mad. We get the scene where Isildur
gets called out to sea by Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
And yeah, okay. I asked you before we started recording because I needed to see if there was lore context, because I think sometimes it is helpful to have that as like, oh, okay, cool, it's just like an Easter egg for something that's coming.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't think doing that kind of foreshadowing stuff is really that bad. Now, here's the problem with this scene, and I told you I would tell you what my biggest issue with this is. For one, you're right. This seems to be them doing some sort of like, hey, remember how the ring in the movies seems to be like whispering to characters? It has like this sort of like weird, creepy thing going on. That seems to be what they're trying to pull off. Problem is, it doesn't exist yet. Like, what are you talking about? Like, Sauron's on the island with you. Like, what are you getting at?
And it hasn't even been crafted yet. And so that's the thing I'm getting at here is I don't know what it is. I can't remember anything lore-wise. People can let me know, let us know, I should say, if there is something lore-wise with this, but I can't remember anything. So the only thing I can think of is they're trying to play off of, obviously from the Peter Jackson movies with the ring, but then secondly, if it's some sort of Maiar or Valar, that they're going to be using in the future, or hey, the West is calling them.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. It is
or the East.
It is
calling them.
It is a literal call to adventure.
Yeah.
In its most simple, like, oh, Isildur needs to literally hear the call to adventure in order to go on his journey. That's what it is.
I mean, I don't necessarily mind like them giving, him starting out as a sailor and his, character like that. It's just this kind of generic tropey stuff in Tolkien's writing that doesn't work. And I just don't. So far, I'm showing the writers do not understand Tolkien.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so he purposely removes this, and I just want to talk about this for a second. So it causes this little mistake. All right. The shipmaster is so annoyed by this, and by somehow realizing, I guess there's an argument that he would know that Isildur did it on purpose, because he's like, oh, I've seen you do this 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think what just happened was bad enough to not only kick Isildur out, but also his two friends?
No. I mean, maybe if someone got knocked over in the sea and got hurt from it, something like that, like some kind of serious consequence that, hey, this happened in the last episode, now it happened again, but it was much more serious this time.
He intentionally does that. Maybe something swings out and hits one of his friends, knocks him off the ship, he gets really hurt. He does it on purpose because he's trying to get out of being a sailor. He doesn't mean to hurt his friend in the process. You know what? This is called character development. Like,
yes. To give people an example, it's like if, one time I was taking a shower and I stepped on my straight razor, but thankfully nothing happened. Right.
Right.
Now, okay, no big deal. So, but okay, nothing to worry about. Nothing happened in this scenario. But if I do it again the second time and I get cut from it, much different serious reaction. Or say that's my wife instead. There's a difference in, she stepped on my razor and nothing happened, no big deal. But if, she stepped on it again because I left it on the floor, made the mistake to leave it on the shower floor or whatnot, and she stepped on it and it cut her, different reaction. Like, there's more serious consequences, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Same kind of connection here.
Yeah.
Odd analogy for me to use, but
it works though. It's that happening, and for some, and because I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense that his friends got kicked out too.
Yeah. Now, and again,
like by association, like what?
That severely. You know what I mean? To where it's not like he can't get punished, but okay, so you're gonna get punished for, okay, you drop this and it could lead to something severe. Okay, maybe you get, you gotta do 100 push-ups or whatnot, or go clean the brig or whatnot. But for him and his friends to get fired, that's just
it's very weird. It's
very forced.
Yeah.
In the story, it's like, hey, this is forced so that the plot can move forward. And at least in this episode, we're getting things moving forward. We'll give him that.
Kinda. halfway through the season.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, everyone that we have been trying to explain this to in the show, where they're like, oh, don't worry, it's coming. We're only part of the way through the season. I don't understand where the disconnect is. It's like you're supposed to use the early part of the season to develop the characters so that when they go on the adventure, we already have a good recognition of who these people are.
Yep.
And maybe we'll save this as like another video. I want to write, and maybe this will be a cool thing to do, like after the first season's over.
Mm-hmm.
Write down the cast and try to do our best to explain who the characters are based on what the show has told us.
Okay.
Because I wrote down, list of characters, and then I was like, we could do it for this one. I was like, these go long anyway. So I think it would be really cool though, because it's like, okay, Hallbrand, like we can talk about his characteristics by the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Galadriel, was there any change in her by the end of the show? You know what I mean? And like when these things happen, because we have had 4 episodes so far. Most of the characters haven't had any sort of interesting developments. They kind of just exist. And I'm like, all right. And we can talk about with Isildur in particular. So you have that scene, right? And you have another one at the end where all of the people, it's his father, right? Who's asking all of the Numenorians to like step up and go to the south, the Southlands. And in that moment would have been a great moment to show Isildur's potential leadership. Just a small little thing, and they don't do it. And we'll get to it at the end of the episode. But this is the thing, is that they keep missing these opportunities for this character development. And instead, everyone's kind of like doing their thing. And to be honest, they miss it with the dwarves too, in a lot of ways. Again, telling, not showing, but that's where a lot of that's happening.
Yep. And we get to later on that the Numenorian army, which were comprised of men in the books, are going to be comprised of women too in this show. So that's going to be
yeah.
That makes sense.
So they go through this whole scene. I don't know what they're.
Just tropey, just melodrama, soap opera stuff. Blah blah blah. You make me mad. I got fired because of you. Boo boo woo woo. And Isildur says, it wasn't my fault. You're making me angry. I'm going to punch you. And he gets punched. And then the other friend says, come on, guys. Remember, y'all are best friends and love each other.
And this line...
That's essentially what happened.
Yeah, this line was like, same old Isil, which I don't know how you feel about the constant...
It's a foreshadowing of him walking away from destroying the ring,
sure.
David.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I guarantee that's what this line is. And it's also funny because this doesn't sound like anything. This doesn't sound like a line that comes directly from a world like this.
No.
The dialogue is so all over the place, whether it's them picking certain moments to roll their R's, like people going real hard in on the names, and then just lines where it's like, same old Isil walking away. Where are you going?
Even if they're trying to build his, showing that aspect of him, why are they telling the audience? Why not just show him?
Yeah.
Like you don't need the guy saying, same old Isil walking away, just like you're going to do in, hundreds of years from now when you try to destroy the ring. You know what I mean?
And you show that he has a piece of his flaw is maybe like his indecision or he's selfish, right? And that's something that is an aspect that leads to the ring using that as a way to not get destroyed in the end.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But you're right. Instead of just showing, instead of it being like, oh man, like he has a really hard time in direct conflict or whatever you want to do to make it shown that he has issues with dealing with that part of his character. Yeah, instead of again making it super obvious that he's anyway. So Arondir, I'm going to let you talk about this part. I'm going to be honest. None of this really is doing. It's just this scene. It wasn't doing it for me. Like I can't.
Yeah. I like the cinematography in this scene.
Yeah,
I will say that
it is better. The lighting is nice.
It's nice, and we get we get the insane Sauron posse.
Yeah.
Again, and
don't know. I mean, like visually, I don't hate their designs, man. I mean,
I don't hate the designs. I just don't think it's apropos of where they should be at with their
agreed.
Armor and stuff. That's more so. I don't hate the design though.
From a design decision, there's part of me that is like, okay, I can at least see that they were like, hey, these specific orcs. Right, again, not talking about lore wise.
Yeah.
But the orcs have stolen gear from other groups of people, because I think even the one that Adar's about to kill, he's wearing like the chest piece of the Southland elves, like the ones that have been at the tower.
And I guess to go against myself and to counteract my point I just made, unless they're going to try and show, you have Adar and he's doing his own thing, and there's going to be some kind of battle between him and Sauron. When Sauron finds out, like, he's not actually working for Sauron, but he's trying to do his own thing, and then they come to a head-to-head fight to show that Sauron's a bad dude. I don't, with Adar, I think I was telling you this before we started the review, he can be extremely lore breaking or not.
Right.
Shadow of Mordor already did this, right? Shadow of War, that series.
Yeah.
And so it comes from in the Silmarillion when, Morgoth took elves and corrupted them and made them thralls and slaves and different things. And so I'm curious on if he's going to be an elf that was one of the first ones turned by, or just one of the ones turned by Morgoth.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think, again, you have to, if they're going to characterize him as a villain, which they are, you have to be, this is what I wrote down, you have to convince us of his motivations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the examples we have in the Silmarillion of an antagonist, it's due to their characters attempting to complete, these, short-term goals, short-sighted goals, I should say, that are also unwise and unfruitful. And so you have Feanor, you have Eel, I was telling you about, Maeglin, his son, the sons of Feanor, and others. Therefore, I don't think hopefully they're not characterizing Adar as being bad for the sake of being bad or being tempted by Sauron. I think if, Feanor, for example, would be a great, idea to, sort of utilize, or Eel, to where it's like, yeah, he goes bad, but he still hates Morgoth.
Yeah.
Right? Feanor does. He goes bad and he kills his kin. He kills elves, but he's also hating Morgoth as well. And so he's kind of like on his own separate.
Yeah. It's
you know what I mean?
It's a bit of a
conflict between everyone. And so I think utilizing Adar that way is different. And it was interesting.
An anti-hero, I think, would be kind of correct to a degree.
Yeah, anti-hero would be a great way to put it. And so I think the characterization of Adar and him being kind of sympathetic and empathetic in killing the orc, and they're
trying to pull something with that.
Interesting because the orcs are completely evil in Tolkien, like at this point.
Yeah.
Yet they almost have reverence for Adar.
Yeah.
And care and like these good qualities that I wouldn't necessarily associate with an orc.
I'm gonna give you my prediction.
Okay.
Because I was just thinking about this. He's the baddie for the season. Like the antagonist for the season. Some of what you say is probably going to turn out to be true. But the fight at the end is basically going to be the orcs and him versus Galadriel, the Númenóreans that go with them, and oh shoot, his name's slipping my mind. The elf. Arondir. Yeah, sorry. I don't know why his name's slipping my mind. And it's going to be this like big battle. He'll die at the end, and Arondir will have some sort of small conflict that comes out of this, but that's going to be the end of it. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what it's leading to.
Unfortunately, I think you're right.
Yeah. So because it's people act as if you can't see the writing on the wall after a couple episodes, or that other media doesn't exist. We talk about this a lot on the podcast. People view movies and shows as if other movies and shows and writing doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, I don't actually know. Like, I don't have insiders into this. But you can see a direction that they're trying to head. And the more like you and I talk, or we talk to other people about the show, it reveals certain things where it's like, that's probably where they're headed. That's the road that they're headed down. You'll get a bit of a sympathy play for him as not being a fully evil character, but he's pretty much there just to be the protagonist for the season. As it builds up to... Yeah, excuse me. Antagonist for the season. I wish that we were getting what you were describing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to get an extremely watered down version of that, because this is it. This is all we see of him in this episode.
Yeah.
He had an episode named after himself, and we got a blurry image of him.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though, too, that, again, I think would be lore breaking. I don't see any elf getting a band of orcs to
Yeah,
fight Sauron. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I assume they're gonna attempt to explain that at some point. It would be
probably
nice.
He cares for them because he knows that they're former elves who are completely corrupted.
This would have been a great opportunity for Arondir to ask him, because it's weird. You've been chained up by these orcs. There's an elf leading them. I don't think he does, right? He doesn't ask him.
I think he says, "What are you?" or something.
He asks. Oh, he asks who he is. Yeah, I don't think there's a line in here where he says like, No,
that's just him looking at
mouth of the river.
Miles of them. Talking about Balerion.
Oh, well, he does ask why do the orcs call you father. Okay, so he does say it, and he doesn't get an answer, which I was still sort of like.
I was confused on why Adar let him go.
Well, right, he doesn't
with his weapons. Like
he doesn't give you a whole lot of anything.
Like if he's the orc's father, we can assume that if Adar lets him go, I think it's proper to assume that. He let the orcs know, hey, don't touch him. Like, I want him to get this message back.
Yeah.
Right? But yet he lets him go with all of his weapons, too.
Why? So he's, like, fine with some of the people in the Southland surviving? I don't understand. I mean, because one of the scenes from the trailer shows the orcs at the gates of that tower.
Yeah.
Who knows when that's going to happen, but... Yeah, I mean, I don't know. His motivation... has to. I mean, if the Southlands is eventually where Mordor is going to be, it seems like the clear indication is that that's what they're building out right now. They're tearing down the trees. That's very similar to what we saw in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of goes hand in hand with all of that. Yeah, if his primary motivation is creating Mordor, which we don't know yet, because I don't know if we've been given a. I don't think we've been given a solid motivation for what Adar is doing.
Right.
I don't know why he's not just trying to get all maybe this is just some sort of a weird way where they're trying to show that he's sneaky and he's setting a trap, but he knows that they're all at the tower and he's got all the orcs already. He doesn't really need Arondir to go back and tell them.
Yep.
Which makes me wonder, it's like, because he has that request. Deliver a message. Okay, and then we get into this scene, and I guess we'll talk about the message in a second when we get to that part. And this is the thing too, man. It's like they keep cutting between all of these different moments, and they're trying to use that as like, deliver a message for me, and
they're using those specific plot points like mystery boxes
to get to
visions, prophecies, different to create tension in the show. Without having the tension created organically, naturally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Is it all right if we so much of this is pointless?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can just skip.
So this entire plot with Bronwyn and her son Theo, whose name I constantly forget, they don't have enough food. Go ahead.
First off, why is Bronwyn the leader all of a sudden?
Because she cut that orc's head off. Joseph.
Secondly, obviously there are capable men in this town. Why wouldn't any of the men go? You know what I mean?
Instead of sending the children. I guess the idea is that they're really trying to push home hard that like the men in that town are just like trash.
Yeah, no, wait.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Wait. So you gotta think they all left, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't they bring their animals with them? They
knew
animals, they were
going
to have
food.
To eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I get you're leaving in a hurry. I'm not saying you have to bring every single animal you have.
Yeah.
Right. But you're going on this journey. You're gonna have to eat.
And someone just manages to bring like 5 potatoes.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you take the, somewhat of the stuff you already have? I mean,
bring a cow instead of leaving it to get slaughtered. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, so Theo and his buddy in quotations.
Yeah.
They go to get the food.
His buddy nopes out. He's like, "Nah, bro."
Dude, literally some clouds cover the sun and he nopes out. And I'm like, why are they turning the orcs into vampires? This is just another one of those weird indications. This is exactly what you do in a scenario where you have vampires coming in. Mm-hmm. Is that, oh no, the sun has been blocked out, the vampires are coming. And so it's like now the orcs, and they did establish, oh, the sun is burning them. It's like, but we know that's not the case. And it's really annoying from even like a minor lore perspective that it's like, okay, we understand that they don't like the sun, but it's not as if they wouldn't deal with it if they needed to. And also, if they've ravaged this town, why are the orcs coming back here anyway?
Well, they can't. So because they were bred in darkness, they hate the light. They hate it. It doesn't burn them. They hate it. So they can't fight in it without lore-wise, without there being darkness. So the cloud part, even though it sticks to what Tolkien wrote.
So shade is okay.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like.
Like if
here's the thing. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt regarding shade, but I still would characterize them like that because they hate the light, so they're not even going to hate shade because even when in shade, there's still somewhat light in it. If that makes sense,
quite a bit of light actually. Yeah. Like some clouds going over the sun isn't. If you have lived in darkness and your eyes like are not adapted to that. Some clouds going over the sun isn't going to make that much better for you.
Unless, you have the difference in Peter Jackson's film where he does a wide scope to where you see the entire sky on this side is starting to be covered by darkness, right? Because Sauron sends, in the books and in the show, he sends a cloud of darkness to cover his army so they can fight.
Right.
It's only the Uruk-hai that Saruman create who can fight in the light because he combines orcs with... goblin men.
Yeah.
And so, but here, again, it's just kind of dumb because we don't really get to see that. And it's, again, they're fighting in shaded light, but not complete darkness. And they fight in darkness if that, makes pretty much darkness, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to mention about this scene. So Theo gets caught and he goes over to this well, right? Down in the well, he's trying to hide from the orc. The orcs are conveniently very, very stupid.
Yes. There's a lot of conveniences that have been in the show.
This is the shot I wanted to talk about because I found this odd. It felt like bad editing to me. So he drops like the bucket back in, and Theo, who can't not scream for like 2 seconds because a bucket is falling at him. This character drives me nuts, dude. So the orc is, let's see. Here's the orc. Hang on. Oh, geez. Let me get back to that scene. Okay. He's in here. The orc is looking for him. Doesn't even consider poking his head down in the well for a second.
Where it was clearly in the direct line of the door.
Yeah, yeah. And he easily disappears. You're like, well, maybe he did go down. So he drinks some water out of the bucket, right? And some of it falls. He's like, and then he drops the bucket down and he screams. The orc was right above him. He screams the second he drops the bucket.
Yes.
How did he get that far away?
They move fast, bro.
He was on the other side. Because he walks past that and comes back. Like, I can show it.
Okay.
Look at this. He goes all the way past, right? So he's past that side. The bucket is on the opposite side.
Okay.
We see Theo.
Nah.
The orc picks up the bucket.
Hey, all right, go back some.
Yeah.
All right, keep going back.
Yeah,
keep going back. See, it's closest to him.
Yeah.
All right.
This is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So you can see it. You can clearly see the side that the bucket is on. People are going to hate me for this. There are so many people who are going to get pissed that I'm pointing this out because they're like, you are nitpicking. It's not nitpicking. All right, so...
And he walks up to it.
Yeah. He walks up
drinking it.
Yeah. Drops the bucket. By the time he realizes... Right, he drops the bucket, Theo yells. It's an immediate reaction. Right? Thud. Groan echoes. He's on the other side of the well about 5 or 10 feet away.
Oh, man.
Listen, I am not an expert editor by any stretch of the imagination. This is ridiculous. We can move on.
Ashley,
now.
you need to create that. You need to create.
Soapbox.
You need to correct yourselves. We're actually experts in everything.
That's it. I don't have anything else to say about.
Yeah. No, I thought it was bad editing. Oh, you are right. Hang on. Go back.
Look how far
he was on the complete opposite side of the well.
He was on the other side of the well.
So he had to walk around.
Yeah.
Do a 180 around the well.
He had to go. Yeah, he had to go all the way around the well.
And then walk another 5 to 10 feet.
5 to 10 feet. And then he heard the yell.
The boy got that water and started sprinting.
Dude.
He's like, it's also, clearly this sound came from the well. Yeah. This groan. Oh, looks down. No, he can't possibly be in the water.
Yeah, it's also weird because after he does that and he goes, must have been nothing. He goes back in the direction he came from, even though he thought Theo ran out that other way to begin with.
Yeah, what's hilarious too is what would have been better is if he took a stone that, say there's a stone that was laying right by the well, this huge stone. He's like, I wonder if he's in the water. Drops it, and then you just see Theo float on
Okay, so let's get to my timeline complaints.
Yeah.
This is dude. Okay, and I wanted to ask you about this again because this is something that it again, not explained in the show, but maybe there's a lore reason for it. Why have they already completed this much of the structure? Is that possible? Is there anything that could give us an indication that it was possible for the elves and the dwarves to
build fast? Yeah. For me, what's a short show wise, right?
Yeah.
Because the dwarves are master craftsmen. You know, Ale was the master craftsman, right? And so Celebrimbor,
yeah,
great at it too, right?
Yeah. And
so I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is that in the last time we see them, there's no agreement between Celebrimbor and the dwarves as far as building the towers,
dude.
Right? Or tower.
Yeah, I
thought it was just going to be one, but it looks like multiple.
It's probably
going to be all
the structure. Yeah, that would be my guess.
And so we don't get to see the final agreement between them again. Obviously, we can assume there's an agreement made, clearly. But that context, that setup, that characterization matters, right? And so they also just pop up there. And so now we have to assume Elrond successfully negotiated. And then they've been constructing this for how long now?
Yeah, I don't know.
Then they just go directly to Celebrimbor, who is a master craftsman, just drinking wine in his room, not helping at all.
Also, we haven't seen him interact with Durin number 4.
Oh yeah.
like he has this thing where he's like, well, I feel like he's avoiding me or whatever, and it was like, again, people are not going to like this, but it's like context would be nice for these things. Interactions with these characters together instead of Elrond just constantly being like an emissary for it. Like Celebrimbor's in charge, right?
Yes, and here's the other thing. Celebrimbor just out of nowhere just suspects Durin is hiding something. We have no context for why.
Right. Dude, it's all to push the next scene forward.
Yep.
They needed some way of like Elrond going back to I always forget the name of this place.
Aragion.
Yeah.
And then that's where Celebrimbor's at, and then the dwarves are in Khazad-dûm.
Khazad-dûm, thank you. Yeah. So the whole point of this scene is literally just so that we can get Elrond back to Khazad-dûm.
Mm-hmm.
That's the entire point. He's just, and he's just, yeah, he's like, oh, what troubles you? And he's like, oh, I'm suspicious of, that he's hiding something from me. It's like, okay, well, why do you know that? Like, we know that they have.
Why do you assume that?
Yeah. We know they have the mystery box, and we get the real reveal for that in this episode. But how does Celebrimbor, like, what's the context for him believing that?
And being suspicious, yeah.
I don't know. Well, we saw the scene with the box.
You could put two and two together.
We
don't have
later.
any idea why Celebrimbor should be
Celebrimbor
suspicious
as a character.
During.
Yes, not us
the
as the
dwarves
viewers.
and elves are always suspicious of each other. Yeah, but why does Celebrimbor, specifically, why is he suspicious?
Why is he now in this moment?
He has no context to be.
Yeah, so that's pretty much.
And he's not even out there helping build the freaking tower when he's a craftsman.
Dude, no one's out there. It's like there's like 3 people. We can go back to that shot. Right here. They have. I don't clear. They were like, it's good enough. Just make it look like it's being built. We don't need to put people in here actually working. It's ridiculous. That's pretty much this thing. And you know what's funny is like we're done with this part of the plot. And I love this because this is some more of that like really bad editing. They have this conversation, and he's like, okay. Where is it? Yeah, he's talking about Durin. He's either avoiding me or he's hiding something. Elrond gives him a look. Boom, we're done with that. And we don't go back. It's
back
over.
in Khazad-dûm.
Yeah. Okay, and I got to mention this. If you ever complained at all about the teleporting going on in Game of Thrones, you got to criticize this show for doing it.
Yep.
Because they're doing
and The
same
Witcher too.
thing.
We complained about it in The Witcher. Got to do it here too.
Because Elrond's just back here, and it's like, okay, cool. So how long does it take to get from one to the other? Can you give us any sort of idea?
They're next door neighbors, bro.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's a leisurely walk over to Khazad-dûm. Yeah. Did you have much you wanted to say about any of this? I mean,
yeah. I enjoy the fact that Disa seems to be the only one with an actual warmth and character to her.
Yeah.
And Durin. But I found it hilarious that, of course, Disa's the one that discovered the freaking mithril. Of course.
Yeah.
I forgot the line that he was saying that on how she discovered it, but I'm like, when they said that, I was just like.
Is it later on when Durin and her are talking to each other?
No, it's when Durin's talking to Elrond.
Later on. Okay.
Yeah, later on.
We'll get there then. Yeah.
But no, I enjoyed, she's sitting here lying. We don't really have to discuss this scene much.
Right.
But I did enjoy the part where Disa and her are talking. Disa and Durin are talking.
Yeah.
And you kind of get they showed the ability of Elrond being able to hear them from far away. I thought that was a good idea and interesting.
Yeah.
Credit them on that. That was creativity. I think the most creativity is when they're doing the dwarven scenes.
It makes you wonder though, because like Durin probably should have known that. So like where they decided to stand, it's like, dude, you're out in the open, in the perfect spot. If he has the ability to do that, wouldn't you want to be hidden away somewhere?
Yeah, and talking extremely low.
Yeah, we have to talk really low. It's still not low enough.
No. I did think showing him like actually hearing them like that, thought that was interesting.
There's also this thing called writing stuff down on paper. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that dwarves can do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so she's pretty much lying to him, and then we get the scene between the two of them talking about how that they need to keep it down, but he's suspicious.
Yeah.
And that she's like, oh yeah, I lied to him. I told him. I don't know. It's a minor thing. I don't know why all the dwarves have to wear helmets all the time. Can we please see the different dwarves and have a little bit of diversity in that?
Yes, that's this may be a minor critique, possibly even nitpicking, but I do not enjoy the scaling of the dwarves to Elrond. It looks comical. I know
because they're
I believe
not.
Alan. That's how Alan Lee depicted them, but then John Howe was more of, I think a better characterization, to put it simply, is how the Hobbit did them, right? And more muscular and thick.
Yeah.
Somewhat kind of like a bigger, a taller tree trunk.
Yeah.
And round.
Well, and I think Gimli looked great in the trilogy.
These just look like more on par with the Hobbits.
It reminds me of Oompa Loompas a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the way they walk.
That may be a minor
stuff.
critique, but I just think they look very odd and comical.
Elrond's supposed to be pretty tall, though, right?
Yes, he is.
He's what, 6 foot?
Yeah, or more.
Yeah,
like more than that.
And he's like a head taller than this dwarf.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing too, is that the original trilogy did a really good job with the scaling.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely seems like they just didn't care about that in this.
Yeah. Well, even in The Hobbit, they did a great job with the scaling.
Yeah. Okay. Minor critique. I really don't like the way the mines look. There's just this. This is gonna sound dumb. The footprints.
I'm sorry. Complete your thought.
No.
It just, when I saw that, I started dying laughing.
What's going on here?
And he does that little kid thing that he just heard from Deesa's and Durin's kid. The hot potato, whatever.
Yeah. Aesthetically,
Bakers, man.
Aesthetically, I'm not into the way that they've designed the mines.
Yeah.
It's very boring.
Yes, I get what you're saying. I can see that point. You make it more dwarven, like how we've seen.
Like Moria is this, and then you see even the areas like where Durnsbane comes out.
More grand is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you have this massive area, right, that's pretty grand, and they show that, but then a lot of the other areas don't come off that way to me. They come off as almost like too simple, and that isn't, as far as I'm aware. And again, this, the show's is kind of doing something different, but the dwarves are very prideful. We know that, and they're kind of show offs. Everything that they do has to have this sort of like grandeur to it. And so this little, even when they're mining, it seems like that's something that they would be doing, is that they just want to show how great they are at everything that they do. This doesn't come off that way. It's just like a weird random tunnel.
And then he goes, patty cake, bakers, man.
Dude.
The writing for this show, dude. That's convenient.
And look, just randomly.
Hey, if we criticize it with Galadriel, we got to criticize it with Elrond. Just very contrived and convenient that he was able to. Oh, this is what opens the door.
Why is this the way that they're introducing Mithril? Elrond stumbles upon where they've got a little vein hidden behind a curtain.
A curtain.
I feel like I'm going to belabor this so much, but there's so many things they could have done with this show, where they were showing Durin discovering the Mithril.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about this, how with the rights that they have, since they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion and what they need in the Unfinished Tales, so on and so forth, it would have been better if they'd done a show of, just in Khazad-dûm, for the most part. Not that you can't have elves and stuff here or there, but like from that framework. Or they could have done the Easterlings, going that route in the Far East. Done a story of one of the Nazgul, or just a show strictly in the Southlands.
Yeah. Well,
in Mordor, but
I had a thought at one point that what they were planning on doing, and I could have sworn that we had talked about this like a year ago or more, that some of the episodes were going to be way more focused on specific characters or time periods, and that maybe we would get massive jumps from a time period to a time period. But that's not what they're doing.
I thought that would. I think
everything's compressed.
Yeah. What we talked about was there's going to be like an episode for the elves, then for the dwarves, and then for the orcs.
Yeah.
Or then for men, and then for the orcs.
And then maybe we get the combined closer to the end of the season. So they're trying to set up and develop each of these groups because it's going to be important later on.
Right. Which would have been a way better way to go about it.
I guess
so far,
it just
rather than just jumping around.
And this is an interesting thing too, is just from a critique standpoint, is that they're not showing us any of the important moments, like when the mithril was discovered. Like we even have the scene later on, and it might be coming up pretty soon, where Durin is like, "Oh, my men are trapped in the mine," and then we don't get to see the rescue. Not really. We get to see Disa singing, and then an explanation that it's supposed to help like move the rocks or whatever, and that there's power there. And in and of itself, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that we're getting like these individual scenes of that rather than something where it's like, all right, oh, Disa is worried about Durin. Durin is going in to save his men. Disa knows a way that she can potentially be useful in this situation. And so you're getting the two of them going back and forth, showing, one, that they work really well together. And two, you actually get to see Durin rescue his men, and you get some context for how much he actually cares about the people that are around him.
And the tension and danger that's present there.
Exactly. Yeah.
You get to go on this journey with him of doing it.
Yeah, there's this
and
thing
that
called
builds
stakes.
characterization.
Yeah. There's like no stakes. Like the only stake in the show is essentially like, oh no, Mordor's coming.
It sounds like to me you just need your hand held throughout this.
Yep, it's exactly what it is, my guy. Okay, so
I'm gonna keep harping back to that just because people and their lack of understanding on things.
Yes.
I do think we get a great line here where I wrote it down, where Durin says to Elrond, as far as promising not to say anything, that dwarven anger outlives even elven memory.
Yeah, I was fine with that.
Tolkienian.
Yes.
Right.
Hey, 0.1 of a point for them.
Yep. Okay,
so yeah, he's like making him pledge to the mountain that he won't tell anyone. Oh, there it is. Yeah, dwarven anger outlives even elven memory.
Yeah.
Let's see. Break your promise, and the power of this stone will doom you and your kin to sorrow. Which I guess is kind of irony because it's the other way around. So he swears. And he shows it to him, and they go through the thing, and then they do their whole like, oh, in your tongue it's called this.
Yeah. And then Durin gives it to him as a token of their friendship.
Yes, which is like, hey, I need you to keep this a secret, but you can keep it.
Yeah. Even though I need you to keep this a secret, I'm gonna give you this.
The guy who doesn't
to where it, potentially gets found out, dude. I bet. Excuse me.
It's gonna.
I bet Celebrimbor is gonna find it on him.
Yeah.
And then Durin's gonna think that Elrond told him,
and
it's gonna create some kind of melodramatic drama.
Yep. But the tower will be done by then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it'll work itself out very conveniently.
Yep. I bet that's what's gonna happen.
And then they're gonna be mad.
Bet
and
me.
Then
anybody want to bet me? Let's put money on it.
Durin and them are gonna keep mining the mithril for themselves and cut themselves off from everyone. And then Durin's Bane's gonna show up at the end of the season
and destroy him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm gonna skip through all of the fake Isildur sister stuff.
Kevin.
None of that really matters.
We don't care about Kevin.
No, we don't care about Kevin.
Oh yeah, then we get this stuff with Halbrand has to teach Galadriel on how to speak. It's funny. It's interesting because we keep getting scenes of them. We talked about in the last episode. They're trying to say Galadriel's really smart, but then also showing us she's really dumb, and they are also knocking down her character. Like bringing her down a peg in order to prop up Halbrand because Halbrand is having to teach her. These are high school, middle school level basic social cues.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And she's thousands of years old. They're showing her to be extremely stupid. And I wrote this down. let me find it real fast. Okay, so right here, Galadriel questions Halbrand on advising her in the art of war, but the writers have not shown us that the Galadriel does not need to be advised because she can't even pick up basic social cues, like common social cues. Not only that, but she's brash, unwise. It seems very much she needs someone to advise her in the art of war and everything else. She needs to be handheld through these things.
Yeah. Okay, so the yeah, it's true. It seems like that's been the case because isn't that what happened in the last?
Yeah.
Was it last episode too, where he's like, he has to be the one to kind of be more
diplomatic to the queen.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and she doesn't know how to be diplomatic. And the editing here, the moob armor, man, I cannot stand that moob armor.
It looks really bad.
But the editing here is also bad because first off,
so funny. The
Númenóreans are extremely skillful fighters, right?
Yeah,
all of them.
I'm gonna slow this down some. So
and she just happens to defeat them all extremely easily and locks them in jail.
Dude, oh my god. Okay, watch this. So he goes to put the chains on her, right?
Yeah.
She does a little lifty thing, and he goes, "Oh no!" and all of them fall into the jail.
they go, wait, do it slow again. Do it.
Look at this. They're like, oh, like, these guys back here look like they're about to grab her, right?
Yeah.
But he goes up, and he's like, oh, and the other guys just follow him inside. And then she just grabs this guy and pushes him in, and he's over here.
Farazan has the perfect shot to put the sword to her neck, right?
These guys, the people writing this, have no idea.
This great commander.
Yeah, a civilization in general, right? A stranger comes into it, is causing all of these problems. She attacks the guard. She's still alive.
Yeah.
Golly, man. I mean, it's hilarious. Don't get me wrong. Like that's so goofy.
One of my buddies told me that Farazan looks like Karl Marx, and now I can't unsee it.
Oh no. And then she just walks away. Like everything's fine, no big deal. We have
you can't defeat me, even though you obliterate, completely annihilate Sauron's army when he first fights him, and then they see you coming again 1,000 years later. It took Sauron 1,000 years to build up his army again, by the way. And when they comes a second time, all his army just leaves him.
All these characters are such
dummies, it's funny how then someone's going to say, bro, it's character art. He's not a great general yet. Like, dude, he's old. At this point, Farazan is.
Yeah.
He should be. Is he just going to now start learning how to fight?
Yeah, like
we just haven't seen that. They haven't shown it. He's a chancellor. He's not.
That scene should have worked out where she tries to do that, and he's already there with a sword in her neck.
Yep. You get to see his sophistication and skill in battle.
And they're just
even if they wanted to show him as a conniving and scheming politician, you can still show him as a great fighter that he was and commander.
So much of this could have been so much more interesting.
Yeah. We can just skip through all this bull crap.
She's basically like, I went on a date. He got dismissed.
What are you doing? Where's your uniform?
He wants to go. Well, you've won. Now you can go west. He's upset because he ruined his friends' lives, even though it doesn't. That still doesn't make sense. And then they're like, the elf has escaped, and it's like, wasn't she in like your tower? Are there only 4 guards?
So, someone can correct my memory on this with the show, but if they're in Númenor, to the west of Númenor would be Valinor, and there's a ban on the Númenorians from selling west to Valinor. So why is she saying, I guess you can sell west now?
I don't know. Did that actually happen?
Middle Earth
is that a
Middle
show
Earth
thing?
Middle Earth is to the east of Númenor.
Is it? I have no idea.
Yeah, no, it is. That's what I'm trying to.
Is it supposed to be some sort? Is it supposed to be some sort of like? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, someone definitely. I mean, because I don't.
I'm trying to remember, and by no means am I a Tolkien scholar, like, know every single detail and, sniff Tolkien's butt, right? I'm just saying I could describe the freckles on his body, like that's how much I know it. That's right. By no means do I try to pretend to be that.
You had mentioned that earlier, and the show keeps saying Isildur wants to go west.
Yeah, and I'm confused on that because it's Elendil's father, unless they're trying to make some kind of, and they just haven't told us yet, a play on. So Elendil's father is Amandil, who's one of the faithful, and I told you in the last episode that he sailed to Valinor to for mercy and get their assistance and stuff like that, and they didn't allow him to sail back. Well, I should say we don't know what happened, but once you go to Valinor, you don't come back, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they're trying to make some kind of play on that, and they're trying to say with his fake sister, now you can sail west or whatnot, but it's just confusing.
Like maybe he wants to sail west, but didn't he want to go to Middle Earth? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just confused on that.
Yeah, I'm a little lost on that too. I was trying to find a good.
And I don't want. Here's another little nitpick right here. I don't enjoy the Númenórean shield. I think, since they're based on Roman culture, I think they should have done with more of a rectangular shield.
Hey, is Númenor like the star-shaped island?
Yes.
It's Númenor is definitely east, or Middle Earth is definitely east.
Yeah, I know Middle Earth is east to Númenor.
So why? Yeah, the question is why.
I know that Valinor is west to Númenor. I'm just trying to understand why would he be wanting to sail west.
Right. Because I wanted to check to make sure that it was like, I thought the whole intention was that like he wants to go to Middle Earth to like find adventure. And so I don't know, man. Maybe that's a bigger mistake than we realized. Someone let us know.
Yeah,
because I don't know if I really want to try
I can't remember if they've said anything in the show is what I'm getting at as far as sailing west and how it applies to Isildur. I just don't remember.
Was episode 3 the last episode he was in? That was when he was introduced. I'll go back and check before the next episode, and we'll try to make a note to go back and talk about that.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, she gets captured, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!"
And she does her little.
Here we go. This is the scene. I want you to tell me.
Go back. So. Yeah. Dude, look at this tower.
She climbed all the way up to the top, I'm assuming, and breaks in. She's just great at everything.
Is it the tower right there, or is it the dome?
The dome. I would assume the tower because this is what they seem to be. This is a foreground shot.
Yeah.
This is the main shot.
Yeah. Okay.
So she's in here, right? She breaks in. Hang on. Did I miss?
Sorry for breaking into your chambers.
I know it's in here somewhere. I'm pretty sure. So this. Did you want to talk about this at all? Is there anything?
No, I don't have to worry about it.
Again, so
he's supposed to be dead at this point.
Yeah. Galadriel breaks into this place and still thinking that she's going to be able to like convince people of something. Spoiler alert, it works somehow.
And that her father's supposed to be the last of the good kings of Númenor.
Uh-huh.
So like faithful to the elves and stuff like that.
So this is some of that exposition dump about the history of Númenor.
Yep.
And here is that.
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
Old Narsil. At least that's what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's
because I looked it up. It gets a new name when it gets reforged, correct? Is that right?
I can't remember. Actually, I probably should know that. Definitely should. Does Narsil?
Because I know it.
I don't think so, but maybe it does.
Okay. You can let me know. But it's just this sword sitting up in a tower.
Yeah, someone can let us know. Oh, yeah. He did give it a new name and called it Anduril.
Anduril. Okay, because that was the name
Anduril,
that Yeah, that's what I found.
Yep. I'm an idiot.
No, it's all good, dude. But yeah, so it's just hanging out up here. I saw it pass by when I was watching the episode, and I was like, oh man, some people are going to be losing their minds about that. Oh, look, I know a thing. I know that thing.
It's on the real.
There's also this axe here that I didn't notice before that slightly resembles Gimli, one of Gimli's from Lord of the Rings.
Is that her? Okay.
And then this shield or something back here. I don't know if that has any sort of like significance at all. But that's not really as important as what's underneath the cloth. Bum, bum, bum. See, and I want to go back to something we were talking about when the trailers came out. I thought she was going to go through this Palantir thing and then talk to Elrond where she says, you have not seen what I have seen.
Yeah.
And maybe it was going to awaken like her magic abilities or whatever. And again, we're talking show-wise, guys, not lore-wise. But that, this scene is basically set up.
So
go ahead.
I will say this as far as what the Palantir are concerned. When I read, the Silmarillion and, Lord of the Rings, all that stuff, I never thought of the Palantir, any of them actually being in Numenor, even though they were given to the Numenorians, but rather in Middle Earth.
Yeah.
However, I think that's a good creative liberty, difference to take, right? Like I don't mind that.
Fair enough.
That's not something that's like, oh, you don't care about Tolkien. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't care for Galadriel and Tarmiriel meeting. I don't care for this scene, them being together, and they're going to go on this conquest together. No, that I don't like. But I don't necessarily mind. I think there's an argument to be had that one of them did end up there, right? But I think they were given quite a few, more than just one. I want to say it was 3.
I don't hate this transition either.
No,
I know it's such a small detail.
Well, I think it's good to credit them where credit's due.
The design on that, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of cool.
Planetary, as they're called.
Yeah. So, and then of course we get the exact same scene again because we have to. Boom! It's just like it's really overdone for me.
Yeah, man. we gotta remind the audience again. Hey, Numenor is going to get destroyed.
And again, maybe it's a little too mystery boxy, but I almost think even if they were going to keep the scene in there, just don't let us see what Galadriel saw.
So
that could have played in.
Yeah, no.
Oh man.
Elendil took 7 of the Planetary with him when he went to Middle Earth and downfall of Numenor.
Okay.
So
yeah, she gets to see that. I'm kind of what is Galadriel's like stake in that Numenor's is going to get destroyed, or at least that seems to be the case as far as they're concerned so far. Like we know what happens, but they're not.
Yeah, I think she's just the sign of what's to come. Like upon her rising,
okay, she showed her. Yeah,
Numenor is going to be down. Is going to come to a downfall.
Because Muriel believes that.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Blah, blah, blah. She goes through.
And there was this other great line from Tarmiriel in the show that I liked that she said, and I think it's here, where she says something to the extent of, I thought I wrote it down. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Faith is a fine strand that can hold together a heart, but it's not strong enough to hold together a kingdom.
Yeah.
But later on, she contradicts that because then she makes, maybe it's here she contradicts herself, and she said that in the earlier scene when Galadriel went off on her. But I think it's in this scene or later on to where she makes a decision completely based on faith to trust Galadriel.
Yeah.
Showing that she doesn't believe what she said.
Yeah, someone that
contradicts herself.
There has been no reason for her to put any faith in Galadriel.
Yeah.
We have
so this is where she says
evidence.
the line, and then later on she contradicts herself. But
faith may bind one heart, Galadriel, but it is too fine a thread for which to hang a kingdom. We're gonna skip through more of this garbage. Yeah, it's
he
stupid.
conveniently gets past all the orcs.
Yeah, one of them I think
ends up,
So he like jumps into the grass. Even I think one of the orcs was like looking in his exact direction when that happened. Yeah. So he jumps into the grass right here, right? And this orc. Well, I guess the orc came out of
his
here.
house. Yeah.
But I feel it seems like he probably would have been able to see him. But I'll let that one slide. It's kind of no big deal.
And he goes.
Even though
one sees him.
Oh, hang on.
All these other orcs are around.
They were looking right at him. It's the other orcs. So on the right side over here. So he runs. He jumps in. Dude, this stuff with Theo is not
just
great
convenient.
this week. So they're not looking. This guy definitely was. He would have seen something. And this guy probably would have seen something too because he was moving in this direction when
even
Theo
just
was coming the
hears
other
something.
way. And then but he gets away. And then he gets attacked. And of course he gets saved.
It's a reindeer.
Reindeer
out of
is
nowhere.
here. Swiftly, lad. Oh, dude, we have to talk.
It's supposed to
about
be
the next
shocking,
part.
David, for Theo. Like, we're seeing a reindeer now.
I'm really annoyed that we're 4 episodes in and this is the first time that we physically get to see an elf shoot a bow. Because I talked to you about this because I wasn't sure. And then you mentioned to me that you see an arrow shoot into one of like the mouths of an orc in that prologue scene. But we don't see where, as far as I'm aware, we do not see where that comes from.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We are halfway through the show, and this is the first time we're getting to see an elf shoot a bow. I'm sure it's on purpose because they wanted Arondir to be the one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they couldn't have done this earlier.
Yeah.
I wrote down in my notes, slow motion does not make art. Because they were trying really hard in this to make it's like the music and it's slow motion and there's all these emotions and he stops the arrow from hitting Theo and returns fire.
Too much slow motion for me.
It's a lot.
It's not that
we're
don't mind
through
it.
this pretty fast, but like let me see if I can show this.
It's not that I don't mind it. It's just I think you need
all this slow motion. All of it's slow motion for the most part. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
You just pick a scene or two. Like briefly,
you can
showing the slow motion. You know what I mean?
And honestly, I wish they had not slowed down him catching the arrow. Now we can talk about whether that scene works or not. Honestly, I just don't care. With as much,
I liked it. I didn't mind it. Yeah. I thought it was good. I think okay, well, you can do it there. I just don't understand why the entire it drags out.
Right. There's a lot of other problems. There's a lot of other problems.
I just don't. Slow motion isn't one of those things that I particularly enjoy a bunch.
Yeah. This is another example, just like in House of the Dragon, where I'm saying hundreds, I'm being a little hyperbolic about that. Hundreds of arrows are firing at these 2 people, and none of them hit them.
Yep.
And it's just convenient that all of these orcs are terrible archers.
Yes.
I think it would have been better if they had not done a slow motion scene of him catching the arrow and you got to actually see how fast his reflexes are.
Yep. And how fast the orcs are too.
Yeah. Just a personal
and kind of like that tension.
Yeah. That's very I think subjective as far, and I know a lot of people don't like that shot and I can't disagree with them. Like it's not something I'm willing to, it's not a hill I'm willing to die on over a reindeer catching an arrow. So that's a lot of it. Like they're shooting all these arrows, they're flying by, they miss him. Why is she here?
Out of nowhere.
And it's not why is she here, like you didn't see her leave the tower. It's
to go after her son. She just very conveniently happens to run into
just brazenly runs at the arrows. Look, this arrow flies by right here and she's right in front of Theo. Arrow's conveniently gone. He's running out of arrows. All the orcs are headed their way. And something else I find really interesting is that, so those orcs are all shooting arrows at him, right?
Yeah. And they seem like they're hot on their trail.
Yeah. Why would you run into an open field?
Because of the light, David. They hate the light. And it's funny because they stand there when the light comes for a while, and the orcs don't shoot arrows at all. They stop.
Look at all this cloud coverage up here. What light? I thought we had determined that this was okay for them.
Yeah, but then the sun's rising or whatnot. But the clouds are departing or whatever, right? Just taking it on the surface like that, right? The clouds are departing out of nowhere, right?
All right, I'll give it to you.
All right. Why have they stopped? Like, you got to think. They showed they were hot. It seemed like they were hot on their tail, and they just stopped shooting arrows until eventually
Do we get like a real recognition of distance?
No, I don't think we do. And that's one of my problems with this show is you get that recognition of distance, you can kind of build that tension up more better.
But the idea is that it seemed like they were pretty hot on their tails.
Yeah.
That would have added the tension to it for sure.
Yep.
So if we were just assuming that, you're right, they were supposed to be relatively close to him,
and
hit him with arrows.
And again, even with the sun coming up, they end up staying in the woods. Wouldn't they still be firing arrows at this time? Like, even if they can't go out in the sun, still trying to kill him. It's just,
they're
again,
like, oh,
it's like,
no,
it's just
the
showing,
vampires.
it's just like, again, showing what we already know. The orcs hate the sun. And then eventually they start firing arrows again.
They're standing out in the open, and they have arrows. That's true. Let's see if we can catch. Let's see here. I'm trying to get a shot. I thought I saw a bow. I'm not seeing. Oh, was that an arrow?
Yeah, that was an arrow.
That flew right by right there? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not showing us the archers, but the arrows are there, and they're just conveniently missing them now.
Yeah. And they conveniently stopped.
Oh yeah, you can see the arrows. You
guys.
can actually see them in the like over here on the left side. Some of them are coming by.
It's like, we got to show the audience again. Orcs hate the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, pretty useless scene.
Yeah, you'll miss it if you're not paying attention. But there's these streaks headed at them. It's okay.
And again, what's the point of letting Arondir go? What's the point of letting him live? What's the point of letting him go with his weapons and then just to deliver a message that essentially is pointless?
And what's so funny is, like, what if he had gotten killed? Then message would have never gotten there.
Yeah.
Okay. So then
gosh.
we've already kind of discussed this, but we get the scene of Disa saving the miners.
Yeah. With her voice. Pleading for the rocks to move. I don't hate it.
I don't hate it in the sense it's like it would have been.
Oh my gosh, dude!
It would have been nice.
Dwarven woman right there. The white chick.
Dang, man.
Oh man, I don't know. Not like that design.
Why couldn't they have picked the dwarves wrote songs, right? It wasn't just like hobbits and elves and humans. Yeah. So like, why couldn't they have found a song that was like lore accurate to depict right there?
Yeah.
Because Tolkien, all of his music had words as far like it was it was like poetry.
Yeah. I don't necessarily hate them showing the religious aspects of the dwarves.
Yeah.
And even, the singing part, but I think it's what we talked about earlier, kind of not seeing the tension with Durin saving the dwarves.
And that's literally coming up here.
But, they worship, Ale, and so singing to the mountains. Yeah, I mean, again, it's
a liberty, right?
Would you say that? Yeah. Just put it that way. It's not how I would do it, but I'm not going to beat them down for doing it.
Sure, it could have been had the show been much better, could have been an interesting creative liberty that they took.
Yeah,
I still probably would have tried to go that step further and at least connect a dwarven song to it. Yep. But that's just me, I guess. Yeah. And that's the thing, man, is like, I know people don't like that we're critical of this, but can y'all recognize that some of this stuff could have been better?
Yep.
Can we get that far? That it's like, it's goofy that the orcs stop shooting arrows conveniently while our three characters are standing out in this open field, even if they can't go out into the sun. Like, and yeah, we should have seen Durin save his men. All we get is him dirtied up and him telling us that's what happened. And it's convenient, none of them died.
Yep.
So this is done. This plot point's over. We're moving on. Oh, and then they decide to shut down the Mithril mine, correct? Isn't that?
They shut down the Mithril mine, and then, there's this problem between Durin and his father that they show.
Which, is it really even relevant to the
No, because they pretty much wrap it up in the next scene. Yeah, it's like, I love you most when I'm angry at you type deal, essentially.
I was proud and stubborn and wrong. It's like, all right, man, like
we can get that. When a new dwarf king is crowned, the voices of all his forebears flow into him, and that's them trying to put a play on Durin and how the dwarves believe that the first leader of the people were Durin, and to simplify it.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I'm
every
fine
incarnation of someone. Again, it's not a hereditary thing.
Yeah.
It's when someone rises up to that standard of the original Durin, they believe he's been reincarnated.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. Listen, the whole idea of exposition giving insight into the different races in their culture, yeah, totally fine with me. I don't have a problem with it. It's that sometimes it gets used too much. Like we get a lot of Elrond doing that in this episode, where he stops to give his little exposition about his parents. Or it happens with Celebrimbor earlier on.
This is one of my biggest problems with the show. This is the first thing I wrote down, is that Tolkien's lore, we're being told about lore, right?
Yeah.
As dangly keys, but we're not being shown any lore.
Mm-hmm. And they
outside of just, hey, here's this sword, here's this hammer, here's Mithril. You remember Mithril, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All this money, all this time. I just...
It feels like the drawers should be more grand than how they're being presented.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I don't know if there's anything else really in here.
No, not much. They make up.
Elrond has invited me to go with him to Linden, so obviously he's headed off.
I think this is a good scene. I think the drawers have always been untrusting of the elves and stuff, and Elrond's been there from quite some time. Again, I think it would have been better to have more characterization, but his father's asking him, essentially, do you think, Elrond essentially came here just to be with you? And Durin's like, no, I think there's more at play. And then he says, well, then go to Linden. And
it's really interesting, too, because in a better show, we could make an assumption that his father might be playing him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like he specifically said that because he knows Durin, it would put that plant that seed in Durin's head of distrusting.
Yeah.
And that might actually be what's going on, and they just happen to specifically check that box off perfectly. And if that's the case, good on them. We'll try to swing back around if that plot point comes to fruition that way. And
I don't enjoy his crown, by the way.
You don't like his crown?
No, I think it should be more grand. It's just iron. It's like the Jords were more sophisticated than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is freaking king.
Yeah, the Arkenstone is
right?
Yeah, that Arkenstone. Yeah. They're proud of the things that they find in the mines because it's lots of jewels and doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's very plain. And then this is, Arondir says, I have a message. Adar will let y'all live if you pledge fealty to him. And couldn't Adar send anyone else to deliver? Had to be Arondir.
I mean, they could have brought Arondir's head back to the villagers and then been pledge your fealty to him, or the same thing will happen to you. But, of course, they're not going to get rid of Arondir. So they could have done it with really any character. Could have been Theo. So they could have brought Theo's head back.
Yeah. So this scene is pointless.
Yeah, it's just more relationshipy type stuff between the two of them. And then have you heard of Sauron? Yeah, we get our first false ending where I thought this is where the show was going to end. Have you heard of Sauron, boy? And then they cut it, but of course that's not the case. So yeah, he pulls a sword out. It's the guy. This guy is owned the barn that Theo got it from. And then they have this conversation. I guess there's a mark there.
Yeah,
right here.
He's, I guess, showing that he stabbed himself with the sword too. He knows what it does, and that he's a servant of. He's on Team Sauron.
It should have been a little
more obvious.
I think. Not crazy, but it's not clear.
Yeah,
what's going on there?
Not as distinguished and sharp as it needs to be.
I mean, scar. You stab yourself like that, get a big enough scar, it's gonna show. And then he shows the similar one.
It's a power, the sword.
It's basically the ring of this show.
Yeah.
That's
for the first season at least.
So far, yeah. The Starfall, this is a red herring because they're trying to convince you that the wizard is Sauron, even though we know that's probably not the case.
It means his time is near.
Yeah.
Please hurry up, Sauron, and come and kill everyone. So we can get this over with.
Yeah. We do get this one. Man, did I miss that? Oh, no, I remember this. Yeah, we get the brief moment of him saying that they know where the sword is.
It's in the tower.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
We get this completely useless moment of them pretending as if Galadriel is leaving.
And then Tarmiriel gives a speech.
Just to let her come back. Like, they literally go through all this trouble. All these people are out here. They're all watching her leave. She's doing this, like, it's just so extra, dude. We get another moment of the pet. Listen, enough with having the pet. Like, they're overusing the petals thing.
Well, now it's all the petals are falling, right? All the leaves are falling. And Tarmiriel's like, this is one of the foreshadowings, right, of the downfall of Numenor, and then that's when she goes into the speech. The faithful believe that once the leaves fell, that meant the Valar were displeased with us, and so we need to follow Galadriel into battle.
Yeah, so she thinks that's the case. She sends her away. Thing. This is a little exhausting, to be honest.
Yeah. We're almost done.
They're driving that point home a little too much. She's like, oh my gosh, I have to change my mind because the leaves are falling.
It's snowing. Winter is here.
And it's just like it happens to happen the second that they put Galadriel on the boat and send her away. Yeah. Also, Galadriel's like standing all the time on this thing. Like, is she waiting for someone to take her clothes off in that scene like it was before? Is this just like common for the elves? Do they stand in boats all the time?
I don't know. I guess showing her poise and her, I don't know.
Yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, we got that whole thing. I mean, yeah, I guess maybe this scene should have happened earlier. There's probably a way to pace this better.
Yeah.
But going from that directly, like they send her away, they've made that decision directly
and then her
to bring her
father
back.
Opens his eyes.
Yeah. He's showing... now. I remember seeing this and I was like, wait, they just let him out of prison?
Yeah, I think the play here is they think that it has to do with Galadriel, which I guess it really has to do with Halbrand. You know, as far as the downfall of Numenor, they think the twist is going to be it's not Galadriel, it's actually Halbrand because he's not Sauron.
Oh, they let him out of the jail the same time they were sending her away.
Yeah,
and he's really the downfall. So we just have all these like kind of like these shots of Numenor doing stuff, and then they bring her back out, and everyone's just convinced. Okay. The last scene that I want to talk about because we're pretty much at the end of the show.
Because we get this. Hang on, we get this earlier scene to start of the Numenorians. They have this distrust of the elves, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we show them. Then out of nowhere, because the petals have fallen, because it's so choppy, we don't get to spend a lot of time and. Someone can refresh my memory as far as the show is concerned because I understand lore-wise what the leaves of Nimloth represent, them falling, but we get this scene of the tree, the leaves of Nimloth falling, and now all of a sudden, the people of Numenor are like, "You're right, Queen. Let's go."
Yeah, this is clearly the right answer. There's like no discussion about it. And again, this is one of the things that I like about Game of Thrones is that. They have a king, and then the council gathers together to try to give advice about the best
plan.
Yeah, the best way to move
the
forward.
Kingdom.
Rather than it's just like, oh, she's just making all the decisions, and everyone just seems to be okay with it. Like it's very convenient and simple that it's all working out this way.
Yeah, and if she's queen, why does she have to ask for volunteers? Why can't she just?
Doesn't she have a standing army?
Yeah,
that exists, right?
It's very odd.
Yeah, it's strange, and I guess you could say that maybe later on people will question her decision to go to the Southlands.
Yeah,
we'll see. It's possible that
I think they're setting up for Altherazon to usurp her throne
through this whole experience. Yeah, because allegedly she's going to get blinded in the fight.
Yeah,
allegedly.
Allegedly.
So we'll see about that. But yeah, I just want to talk about this last little scene right here. I know some people are making some references to the way people were raising their hands in this scene, and we can talk about it because it's kind of goofy. But yeah, they're asking for people to volunteer. Everyone doesn't look happy about it, and I know. See, Isildur's watching from the back. Okay, this is what I was talking about. When you're trying to develop a character, it's good to have moments where they're, even small moments, where they're able to shine. So we know that Isildur eventually becomes king. He eventually becomes a leader of the Númenóreans. Why was he not the first person to volunteer?
Yeah.
It was just such an obvious moment of like, oh, they're setting this up so that Isildur, no one wants to join. Isildur walks through the crowd. He says, "I'll do it." You see the disdain that his father gives him, and I'm making this up at this point for the most part, even though I think his father still looks at him like oh, great, of course this is what you want to do. Like
concern, I didn't want you to do this,
which is fine. It should have happened though, because Isildur steps up and says, "I will go," and then his friends are like, "Fine," which it's so funny because they haven't resolved that little tiff between them, and I'm wondering if they ever will at this point, or if everything's just going to be fine with them in the next episode.
It's going to be an exposition dump.
So his friend is actually the one who does it, and then he falls in behind. And so they really, if they're doing this on purpose, is setting himself up to be sort of like unworthy. And I don't think I like that.
Yeah.
Because the ring corrupted him.
Yep.
As it does
He's from
everyone.
The Númenóreans, again, keep in mind, the faithful and Númenóreans for the most part of their history.
There's that look.
Except for when Farazorn started to get corrupted and all that, are noblemen. Yeah. Right? They're strong, they're fair, they're skillful, and so they're going to be noble, and then it's when Isildur gets to ring to where he gets corrupted by it, right?
Yeah. It brings out those characteristics of the person who currently holds it.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you get that look as soon as he sees him do that. It should have just been him being the first one to do it. I'll stand by that. I think that would have made this scene in particular work better. And then his sister has her concerned look, doing? Even though she like knows that's what he wants.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, man, whatever. It's fine. They can keep her on screen even if her plot don't make a lot of sense. And then you get all of these people. Look at the way that they're raising their hands. Now, I won't say that they did that on purpose.
Yeah, I think it's just.
But look, it's so weird. Who puts their hand out specifically in that
way?
Yeah, they're all kind of doing it. You go up.
They're
up
going to go lay
head.
hands on them and start praying in the Presbyterian tongue.
Yep. So and see, okay, but also look.
They're going to be speaking in tongues, David.
Most of these people, their hands are much more up in the air.
Yeah.
See, they're not doing the weird salute.
That's funny.
Someone pointed that out, and I thought that was really funny. So that's it. That's the episode, y'all.
Oh man.
There's
too many characters and plots going on for the writers to make it interesting.
I think I'm gonna name the sub thing on this for the video. They took our jobs.
Oh, dude. Did y'all know that Farazorn was there on January 6th? I saw someone said that on Twitter, and I died. That was perfect.
All right. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, just not. It sucks that I really wanted this show to be great, right? And I'm not saying it had to measure up to the level of Peter Jackson's trilogy. That's a high standard, but just a great show. Something good, something that's faithful to Tolkien's. And, I understand creative liberties. We've talked about this before here and there, but it's sad that it's disappointing that Tolkien's writing is knocked down to this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a bad show to mediocre at best, right?
Yeah.
And so that's not how it should be. And the writing is very generic, tropey, tripe, and something I don't think we mentioned in our last episode. Wrap it up with this, but the opening scene of the show of episode 1, the bullying scene, is a direct correlation to Spock getting bullied in the movie in 2009.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
You know, they wrote, and J.J. Abrams' Bad Reboot did that with Star Trek, and so you get the connection there. They do the same thing, right? Yeah, and it's just like, come on, guys.
Yeah, they both happen to have pointy ears.
Yeah.
Misunderstood characters.
Yeah, bullied as a kid.
Yeah.
It's just nothing, and hardly anything that's interesting.
Yep. Well, Joseph, you want to give just a quick synopsis of the value for value system if anyone's happened to make it this far?
Yeah. So if you enjoy what we do and you think it has value, we have a value for value system here we've set up to where you can donate via your time, talent, and treasure. Just go to the description in our YouTube video link or our YouTube video and click the direct.me link, and there you'll see our PayPal donation link. And all we're asking for is $1 a month for recurring payment. If you can do more, great, but that's one of the best ways you can support us if you're getting value from our work, if you think you're getting value. If you're like, I don't have $1 or anything, you can also support us by liking and commenting on our videos, sharing them on social media, by word of mouth, going to our podcast and downloading the episodes, following us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and just engaging with us. That also helps and is really valuable. But we do, we're pushing the PayPal donations because we would prefer not to monetize our channel so that there's no ads. And however, if it gets to be to the point where we have to monetize our channel, that's okay. We would just prefer not to do it because none of us like ads. So
and having to stop in the middle of something.
Yeah. And rather just keep on going through and listening. And so the best way you can prevent us from doing that is by donating if you're getting value from what we're doing.
Yes. And this will be something we'll try to mention in videos from now on. We're going to start live streaming the podcast every Monday night around 6:30. So you'll eventually be able to send super chats through that if you feel.
Is it 6:30 or 5:30?
It's 6:30 my time. Sorry, 6:30 Eastern.
Okay.
When you put
I thought it was 5:30 because I'm only an hour behind you.
Right.
And
so it's 6:30.
It's set up for 4:30 my time this Monday.
Oh shoot, maybe I put 5:30 on my end. I'll go back and check. I meant 6:30.
Okay.
So it'd be 5:30 your time.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to come up specifically on what region you're in, so it should say if I put 5:30, it should say 4:30.
Right.
Yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards. Okay. 6:30 Eastern, Monday nights. That'll fluctuate just a little bit because sometimes stuff comes up. But we're gonna start live streaming it. You'll be able to eventually super chat through that if you feel the need to do that. But I'll also have the PayPal linked. Post at the top of the chat every week. So if you would prefer to do that, you can set up reoccurring payments. You can send us notes. You can always email us about the donations that you send in. And we're going to try to figure all that out. So yeah, join us there. We'll talk about all sorts of different stuff surrounding Rings of Power. There's stuff planned. And then we'll have plenty of other things to talk about besides Rings of Power. So it's, it's just the most prevalent thing at the moment besides House of the Dragon. Anyway, until next time, y'all take it easy.
Take it easy.